Welcome back. I'm Courtney, and this is the Accounting Struggle, where we speak about our struggles with accounting openly and honestly. We do not run from them. And today's video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about what you should be putting in your annual or mid-year review. So before we get started, if you are new here, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and you're more than welcome to subscribe and join our family. New videos come out on Wednesdays. So wanted to talk about what you should be putting in your mid-year or annual review. So these annual reviews and these mid-year reviews, obviously the mid-year is just the midpoint, and then at the end of the year you'll do an annual review. But the purpose of these reviews is to detail and highlight some of your accomplishments throughout the year, things that are going well, and then some key areas and opportunities and things like that. And so the reason why this is important is because it factors into your overall performance. So when you're being evaluated, when roundtable discussions are happening, when people are considering you for a promotion, they will be leveraging this information to determine if you are someone who should be moved up, should you get a bump in pay. So it helps with compensation and so forth. It is a very important part of your overall assessment. So you want to make sure that you have a very thorough review. So for your evaluation, usually there's a portion where your manager or partner, whomever is above you, whoever you're reporting to, they will do a portion of their own assessment, but usually there's some action on your part where you have to go in and review yourself, evaluate yourself, your own performance. So that's what I'm kind of going to be focused on today, because I can't help what other people are going to say about you. So you'll want to go to your HR guides first to see if there's some particular information on how you should go about doing your evaluation. Usually when it's that time of year, they'll send out an email. A lot of companies will do this where they're saying, hey, it's evaluation time, be sure to update this by this date and include this. Sometimes there's a particular format that you want you to stick to. So you'll want to start with that just to make sure that you're including everything that you need to be including in your evaluation. And if you don't have that as a guide, if it's not very specific and it's kind of vague and it just says, just talk about yourself and evaluate what went well. If it's a little bit vague like that, then you'll want to look at some of the next steps that I'll talk about. But first, start with whatever your HR team is saying you should be including. Make sure you hit on all of those points and you address everything that's in that. And if they give you a format or a layout or something that you should stick to, make sure you stick to that. Some people want to see just a few bullet points and be very succinct. They don't want a lot of long written evaluations. And then other employers may want you to have something that's way more detailed and just a lot more information. So just make sure you're looking at whatever is the guidance. So in order to do a good evaluation on yourself, you want to really be soliciting feedback. So whomever you're working with, all of your people that you're reporting to, and other peers that you've worked with. So if you are in public accounting and you're working in an engagement, other people in the engagement teams that you've worked on, or outside of that, if you're just you have a senior or you have a manager, or honestly even people who have just worked alongside you who are at the same level, other associates, if they've worked with you on projects or if they've reviewed your work in any way, you'll want to just solicit feedback. And this is really something you should be doing throughout the entire year. You don't want to wait until it's time to sit down to do your evaluation to determine what people think of you, of your performance, how you're doing. And you don't want to try and do all of this at the same time, because then it's easier for you to leave stuff off and it might be harder for you to remember some of the key accomplishments that you had throughout the year. So best practice obviously is to be updating throughout the year, but obviously this is accounting, and in the real world we get very busy in accounting, so that's not always as easy as it sounds. So if you are going to be sitting down for the first time in several months to do your evaluation of yourself, be sure to reach out to some of the people on your team, the people that you've worked with closely, and solicit some feedback from them. And you want it to be as honest as possible. So once you've gotten down the format, you know kind of what to include in your evaluation, and you've gathered all of your feedback, you want to go ahead and start writing your evaluation. Some of the things you want to focus on are starting out with prior period goals. So if this is your first year or your first term, I guess, with this company or in this role, and you don't have prior goals to reference, then obviously this won't apply. But if this is your second year, or now if it's an annual review and you did a mid-year review, just look back to whatever the past period was. What were the goals that you set out? and how did you accomplish those? Did you accomplish those, number one? So you'll want to include that in your evaluation. So if you set a goal last month, I know when I was not yet a CPA, one of my big goals was to accomplish getting my license and passing all of the exams. So once that goal was accomplished, I made sure to include it in my evaluation on the next period. So you just want to look back at your previous evaluation and your previous assessment. Just look at that and look at all of the goals that you set out and see how well you stacked up against those goals. If there were some goals that you listed in a prior period that you did not quite hit on or you didn't quite accomplish, you'll want to be sure and address why that didn't happen. You want to address why you didn't accomplish them, and then next you want to detail how you're planning to accomplish it moving forward. So once you've touched on all your prior period goals, you want to also include in your evaluation some of your new goals. So what are your goals for this period, or for the next couple of, I guess if it's halfway, what are the next 2 quarters goals? So for the rest of the year, how are you going to accomplish whatever it is you set out at the beginning of the year that isn't yet accomplished, and what else are you looking to accomplish now that you're halfway through the year? Things have changed, we've made some adjustments. What are your new goals? So you'll want to be including that in the assessment as well. So when you're doing your new goals in your evaluation, you want to be kind of separating them out between categories. So I like to have 2 categories where I'm focusing on, one being like professional skill sets, things that are very particular to my role, and then the other being like soft skills, emotional intelligence, that kind of thing. So an example would be if you are looking to move up, say you're in an associate role in your current role and you want to move up into a senior position and you want to demonstrate your worthiness of that, you could say, and this is stuff that you need to actually be planning to do, but maybe there is a certain software that you know you need to, or a certain certification that you know you need to get or learn before you're able to really excel in that next role that you're trying to go to. So you want to first be looking at that role, looking at what that role entails. So if that next role, if the senior level position requires maybe like a black belt in lean awareness, or if you need to get some type of certification in Tableau, then you would just go and you would look into that, see what the time frame is, how long that's going to take you to accomplish, how well that's going to contribute to the skill sets that you need to have for this next role, and then just kind of putting that together in your evaluation. So just laying out a plan of like, I know I need to, in order to be a senior in this public accounting firm, I know I need to have my CPA license, I have X amount of sections left, and here's how I plan to finish in time to move up. You know, just something like where you're detailing out your plan. So that's more of the professional side of goals. And then with the soft skills, I like to focus more on like things that I'll be doing outside of just the technical things in day-to-day activities of work. So if you're a senior and you're looking to move into a manager position, and you know that that would require a lot more speaking up, being doing more presenting, or just being a little bit more vocal in your role than you are comfortable with right now, maybe there's a Toastmasters class that you can take, or something where you can kind of work on those skills, those soft skills, or those skills of being able to do more public speaking, being more comfortable with leading meetings and that kind of thing. So you'll want to be including that in your evaluation as well. Just detailing and mapping out a plan of how you're going to get to that next skill set or that next level that you want to be in. So just make sure you're including that in your evaluation as well. So when you're detailing, kind of like using all of the feedback that you've gotten and talking about things that went well, things that didn't go maybe as great as they could have been, that's something that you want to be sure you're speaking to your strengths and all of the accomplishments that you had this period. So some of the things you want to focus on in your evaluation is some of your strengths. So now that you've gotten all of your feedback and you've kind of looked at what are your accomplishments over last period, like what are the things that you said you were going to do that you actually did, and you've gotten all of that listed out, instead of just like putting a bullet point of like, I said I was going to do this and I did it, you'll want to speak to your strengths and just demonstrate how you went about accomplishing that goal. So if one of your previous goals in your last period was maybe you set out to, in this next engagement with this client that you are working on, you said you wanted to decrease the amount of time spent on that client by 20%. So how did you accomplish that? What went well in that? What were your strengths? You want to be including that type of information, just highlighting things that you're really good at, some of your key attributes, so that it's clear when you're being evaluated by a broader group, they're able to kind of speak to what your talents are as a contributor on the team. So you want to make sure you're highlighting that in your strengths. And then you want to speak to any opportunities, things that maybe haven't gone as well. So if you had some goals that you set out to accomplish and they didn't go well, maybe you met them but you were over budget, or it took you a lot longer than you thought. What are some of the opportunities that you have? How can you improve that? For the opportunities or things that didn't go well, it should probably be no surprise to whomever is going to be reviewing this. Like, these things that you're listing out in your evaluation should be known issues, things that are not surprising to anyone. So if you've struggled with some particular areas, that's the stuff you want to be speaking to. But you don't want to just say, I didn't do this, or I did poorly with this. You want to be saying, here's how I fell short in this particular area, but there's always got to be that part where you address the thing that you didn't do well. But going forward, I can see where the opportunity is, and this is how I can change it going forward, or this is how I plan to change it going forward. So maybe going back to the previous example, your plan was to cut the budget by 20%, the time spent on this engagement by 20%. We didn't make 20% on the team. We cut the time spent by, let's say, 15%. So going forward, what we need to do is just tighten this up a little bit more and blah, blah, blah. So you can just be, hopefully that makes sense and gives you an idea of what I'm trying to say. But you can basically just be speaking to things that are pretty much known issues between whoever's reviewing this, but also you want to just specifically be speaking to, like, here's the opportunity, here's where I fell short, but here's how I'm gonna fix it. Another thing that I feel like is very common in accounting, when you're doing your evaluations, is talking about things that you enjoyed, some of the work that you enjoyed, and some of the things that you did not enjoy, some likes and dislikes. I think this is especially early on in your career, so that the people who are in charge can kind of get an idea of where to place you, what your niche might be, where you should be focusing. So if there's a particular type of work, maybe you work on clients. If you're in public accounting, you're working on different clients. Were there any particular projects that you worked on that you really enjoyed? Any types of clients, any industries? Did you just love all your manufacturing stuff and you hated all that pesky construction nonsense? Or maybe if you are in industry, there's a particular project that you really enjoyed, or if you're in government, I never mentioned government, so I'm sorry, y'all. But just if there's something in particular that you really enjoyed doing throughout your time that you would love to do more of, that type of work, and look for those types of opportunities as they come up more, that's something you definitely want to speak to in your evaluation. Even if it's just a meeting with your manager, and you can't list out, because you don't want to be listing the actual client names in this, but you want to just speak to that, so that way it gives you an opportunity to get in front of that type of work again. And you also, for the same reason, want to be including anything that you didn't like as much, or any type of work that you just don't care to do or don't feel a strong connection to. Now, this shouldn't come across like, okay, don't give me no more of that, because I'm not doing that no more. But it should be more so, this isn't something that I feel deep passion for, so I really like to focus on this type of work instead. And I think that that's something that's encouraged. People want that type of feedback. The people who are assigning the work want that type of feedback. They want to be putting the resources where they make the most sense. So if you're working on projects that you absolutely hate, they probably don't want you to work on them anyway. So you can be open about that, but just, careful with the wording. So you'll want to be including that type of information in your evaluation as well. Lastly, I think something that's really important that comes up even at the very beginning of your career is trajectory, forward look of how do you think things are going? Where do you see things going? What direction are you headed in? These are the types of things that you want to be thinking about and being prepared to discuss in your meetings or in your evaluation you want to be prepared to answer those types of questions of like, okay, so you've done this, it's been a year, like what are some of your initial thoughts of like a year from now, where do you see yourself in this role? 2 years from now, 3 years from now? And you'll want to just be thinking about that and realistically thinking about that so that you can make decisions that make the most sense. If you are looking to go into a management position and right now you're an associate and you have one more level, if that's the forward look for your 5-year plan, there might be some things that the powers that be, you know, the people, the management, the partners, whoever's in charge, there might be some things that they can do to help get you on the right path to make sure that ultimately you end up in that position that you have a goal to end up in. So you want to make sure that that's something you're speaking to. Even if you don't specifically list this stuff in your evaluation, usually you write it all down and then you meet with someone to discuss it. So just be prepared to answer those questions. So that was the few things that I wanted to speak to today in terms of your overall evaluation, your performance, your assessment of yourself. You want to make sure that you are highlighting things that are great about yourself, and then touching on some of the areas where you know you need some work. But this is very important, so you want to make sure you're not skimping on it and you're not kind of just throwing it together at the last minute, because it does impact your bottom line and it affects your coins. So when it's time for them to determine how much of a raise you're going to get, what category you fall in that, or bonus or promotion, all of that stuff that you put in your evaluation is absolutely going to be considered. So you want to make sure that you're doing a good job at capturing everything that should be included in that. So anyway, I hope that you found these tips to be helpful. If you did, again, be sure to give it a thumbs up if you like this video, and if you like it here, we'd love to have you more. Keep coming back and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.